Okay, so I'm working on a theme for kind of a series of variations, and I call it variations of a sea of C's in C major, but kind of the main title is Chasing Butterflies Over Yamhill, and it's about exercising my hands and fingers to stimulate my left and right hemispheres of the brain and to get that neural connectivity and that creativity. And what I'd like to do is go out for walks in nature and kind of listen to Mozart and kind of hear what he was imaging in his music. And when I go out, especially after a long week at work, in the morning time I go out for walks in nature, listen to Mozart, and I'm telling you, it's just an entirely different perspective of the world. But most importantly, it actually affects my music greatly, my creativity. And so usually when I come back from a walk from out in the park, in nature, and listen to the great music of Mozart and those guys, you get a sense of like not just creativity, but also an elevated mood. And so I try to rush home and play the piano and come up with ideas for this theme, or the variations of CFC and C majors, which I hope to perform at one of my events that I'm trying to conceptualize. And it is, again, it's just a C chord pattern. It's chasing butterflies. So when I'm out in nature and see butterflies and flowers, and it just stimulates, such a positive energy. And so I try to bring that home when I'm playing and improvising, and I'm not adhering to any academics. It's more about just kind of like, I call it harmonic kaleidoscope, or harmonic abstract painting. And I'm just kind of visualizing stuff in my head as I play and trying to get my fingers to kind of reflect that. And what really helps, and I'm glad my wife put these flowers back up here, is that I look at flowers and create beautiful images in my head and try to correlate it to various patterns on the piano. And again, the main intent really is to enhance the neural connectivity between the left and right hemispheres of the brain, get the neurochemicals really kind of flooding my brain in multiple regions that I'm not using at work, and but also increasing the myelination of the axons, so those neural signals are not just more robust, but they're actually faster. And so it's had a profound effect on my creativity, on my web stuff, but also my writing and kind of communication skills. So anyway, so we'll start off with C, G, keep it simple so that kids can really learn without having to be such an academic or a professor in music, which turned me off a long time ago. And so I think it's important for people to have that academic understanding of music, but there are a lot of people that are missing out because they don't want that. And so what I'm trying to teach is give them the basic chords, and they can just start driving and not have to worry about the engine size, the mechanics of the car, but just take the keys, find a safe place, their imagination is what I call it, and just dance. So right now my hands are really cold, so I try to do exercises to get my fingers to respond to my imagination and intent. So I'm going to visualize butterflies, swallows, and a bunch of stuff in nature, and I call it Graham Oaks, or it's a park called Graham Oaks. I probably shouldn't say that on YouTube, but trying to get that finger independence on both and left, right hemispheres. If you want to know how the kind of the basic functioning of the brain works, I've got a bunch of videos on my YouTube channel, and you go to pianowithmichael.com. After the birth of my first daughter, I was listening to a lot of Mozart. I didn't really know how to play back then, but I kind of composed that. And I used to listen to so much classical music, Mozart, Vivaldi, Bach, and all that. And I just remember being in an elevated mood, and then of course, politics. Probably more social media came about, and the algorithms, and I'm going to call them malgorithms. That really kind of go after the base root of the psyche of people. And fear and anger are two of the most powerful neurochemical states. And so that's my thoughts on what's going on with a lot of the division and hate in today's society is the algorithms. But it's just a machine, it's just algorithms. And as I was talking to someone else, you can program those algorithms, or you can be a human being and actually seek out those things that enrich your life, that add color to your life, add light to your family, and pursue those things that make you happy, that bring you joy, and kind of elevate your mood. And unfortunately, these corporations aren't inherently bad. It's just that some of us fall into our whims of base root psyche, and we just perpetuate that. So it's kind of like that study they did with a rat or a mouse, where they gave the mouse a bar. You press a bar, and or the mouse would press a bar and get a dopamine fix, a pleasant dopamine fix, and or I don't know if it's pleasant or angry. Anyway, it would get a huge dopamine fix, and it would just press that lever over and over until it died. And so those algorithms also perpetuate in today's technology. And so if people don't have the willpower to break away from those algorithms, they can be quite destructive on the psyche and the spirit of people. But again, it's just a tool. It's like a car. You can drive it crazy, or you can drive it in the lines. But more importantly, you can drive it to somewhere you enjoy, and I see algorithms and programs and all the social media the same way. You can seek out, I mean, there's so much knowledge now, it's crazy. So you can seek out, for me, it's the great artists like Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, Da Vinci, and the great thinkers, Nietzsche, Carl Jung, Aristotle, Plato, and just we live in such an extraordinary time where the wealth of information from history, but more importantly, important figures of history of humanity. And for me, it's more of the artists and the creatives and the people that inspired to do things for the intellectual and psychological growth of people. So anyway, that's enough of my rambling. I'm gonna go back to trying to get my hands warmed up and work on a C of C's in C major, also known as Chasing Butterflies over Yamhill. So I work in Yamhill as a UPS driver, and I listen to a lot of classical music out there, and it's just a beautiful joy out there. And so when I say chasing butterflies, I'm kind of imagining following these butterflies, but from an allegorical sense, it's also because of my route in Yamhill and just driving out in this kind of extended area, I can really listen intently to the podcasts and stories of extraordinary people throughout history. So my greatest hero is Johann Sebastian Bach when it comes to people that have done things in music. And so I was able to do a deep dive on his life from multiple perspectives. So you get academics that talk, and some of the academics are very rigid in their presentation of Bach, but then you get artists and creatives that said, tell a different light on Johann Sebastian Bach. And so when I say chasing butterflies, it's not just about the beautiful imagery, but it's also about chasing people I admire greatly and listening to their lives and from different perspectives. So. My fingers aren't warmed up yet, so I'm just going to do basic chord progressions and kind of basic chord patterns and flourishings, where if you go to my website, when I'm in the mood, sometimes when I have a glass of wine, it really opens up my creativity, and my hands and fingers are really able to move quickly in complex patterns, but my hands are cold. I'm trying to demonstrate here is using the left and right hands, which have the most motor and sensory neurons allocated to them, using them in complex imaginative manners. And so again, I'm not adhering to any chord structure or timing or any academics. It's just abstract painting, and get those get the brain, the STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics part of the brain, but also the artistic, divergent thinking, creativity, and for me, the beautiful, kind of uplifting, nature-inspired imagery. I'm nervous. So I'm going to go through my repertoire of hopefully something that a project I'm working on called LullabAI, and it's aimed towards young kids, and it's to get them introduced to the basics of music. Number one is to use kind of a different style of presenting music, the basics of it to kids. But the main intent is to inspire parents that have young kids to use music, the piano, and the Mozart effect to prepare their minds and condition their minds and get them ready for the AI future, which many people that I admire greatly for their input on the sociological and kind of the technological growth of our society, especially here in the West. I'll say that AI is going to have a huge impact, whether, some people believe it's just kind of a scam. Other people are like, no, it's really changing the trajectory of our society. And our kids, to be able to adapt to that new future, they're going to have good STEM skills, but also a very open mindedness, kind of that divergent thinking, to be able to make connections kind of abstractly, but hopefully also to get them introduced to music that's more uplifting, nature inspired, dynamic, and so you're not just listening to, or let's go like a negative chord. So that repetition conditions the brain to be able to kind of focus, which is good for focusing on like a project or something like that. But when you want to be able to, hi buddy, hi Chunky. When you want to be creative and kind of think outside of the box, at least exposing the psyche and the neural networks to something that's more dynamic and unexpected and kind of variable can greatly induce kind of a state of mind where your mind is able to look out there. And so today, in my opinion, with the corporate machine kind of taking over the algorithms for music, a lot of it is very repetitive and simplistic and follows this pattern, which I love, all music really. But I've noticed when I listen to classical and, number one, those guys were out in nature, really, they were extraordinary artists, number one, and very passionate and kind of evoked a divine reverence. Their music is a lot more dynamic, creative, and just kind of flowing. And I think, obviously, I don't expect everyone to be like me and kind of obsess over classical, but just listening to it every now and then and allowing the brain to be conditioned, or at least open to the kind of that abstract, creative, but not just abstract, but it's also, what, buddy? You want to go for a walk? I might have to do this conversation later, plus my fingers aren't warmed up much. My buddy wants to walk. Hey, do you mind if I play for a little bit longer? 5 minutes. That's my buddy Charlie. impressed with the location of the chords or the C. Then we go to G. Back to C. Then F. 5 minutes, buddy. So I'm going to work on that, the repertoire for the lullaby, which is more geared, again, towards kids. That might be repetitive when I start. My kids tell me I repeat myself all the time. It's called a coda. He wrote a book for his second wife called A Notebook for Anna Magdalena. There's a bunch of really simple but beautiful pieces that he's my hero, and he was one of the greatest teachers for all the great musicians coming after him. Mozart looked up to him. Beethoven made his debut kind of hey, this is me, I'm an extraordinary pianist, using Bach's well-tempered clavier. And so all the artists, Franz Liszt, Chopin, all revered Bach as like this great pillar of the musical manifestation of humanity. And so they see him as a kind of the great, let's call it Socrates of music. And I hear it, but for me, more importantly, my hero, I've got lots of heroes, but Bach's my favorite. But Beethoven kind of opened my eyes up, and then doing a deep dive on his life and who he admired, everything kind of leads back to Johann Sebastian Bach. And so then I did a deep dive on his life from multiple perspectives. I was like, my gosh, this guy is just a titan. And that's why, again, he's still around, his spirit's still around, his music. And for me, you just wonder what drove this guy. And then you understand that he was a deeply, deeply faithful person. I'm like, what? And so that opened my eyes up and set me on a journey about faith and about religious permutations, but more importantly, what inspired Johann Sebastian Bach. There was a time, I tell this to people at work, there's a stigma, I'm not saying it's all true, but that kids, there's an axiom that, kids don't realize I walk in the snow for, 50 miles to go to school and stuff like that. And so I get it. I mean, that's not entirely true, but there is a simplicity and the convenience of having cars and stuff where they don't have to walk as far to different places. But Johann Sebastian Bach, because he admired one of these musicians that he heard of, an organist that was supposed to be one of the best ones in the area, he walked 250 miles to go learn from this guy, to just, understand who this musician was. And Bach was such a gregarious person that he immediately hit it off with this guy and apparently stayed longer than he should have. But that commitment of walking 250 miles and being inspired by someone is just like, it's crazy. Anyway, he inspires me, and I found out what inspired him, and I agree. So I go on these tangents, and I call it improvisations off of themes, and sometimes it bugs my family a lot, or people I talk to, because I'm always going on these tangents. But there is a theme, and there is a structure that I'm sticking to, but it really does stem from improvising. another piece. It's called the Well-Tempered, or Prelude Number 1 in C major in the Well-Tempered Clavier by Johann Sebastian Bach. So that's just one piece from the Well-Tempered Clavier. It's one of the few pieces. I'm in this quagmire where I play, and some people think I play brilliantly. I'm just like, oh man, if you really knew the people, it's one of those situations where the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And it's one of those situations where today's, a lot of the permutations or kind of the influence of music today is, follows a very structured pattern, and it's very simplistic compared to what it was back then. And I think a lot has to do with the monetization of that. The Well-Tempered Clavier, Book 1 and 2, are considered by the extraordinary musicians that can perform at the top level as kind of the Old Testament and the New Testament, which is kind of funny, or maybe not funny, but kind of ties into Bach's passion and reverence for his belief and his faith. But a lot of people consider those as the Old Testament and the New Testament to music for any serious musician, composer within the classical genre that really appreciates kind of the pinnacle of. Okay, I guess I was blabbing too much. It turned off. So maybe I'll try a little more repertoire. Or did Charlie turn it? Charlie, did you turn off my camera? I think he wants to go for a walk. Would be improvising off of one of my other heroes' most popular song, which is or called. What's great about these songs, pieces, is that you can play them differently with different emotions and different kind of psychological representations. So I work, I think around 54 hours a week at my job. And so I'm only kind of able to practice at night and sometimes in the morning. But I have so much reverence for the great classical masters, the great classical performers today. And I told someone else, there's a saying that, when you have a certain perspective, you can say, well, I'm just standing on the shoulders of giants, like Plato said, and I think even Beethoven said that. But for me, I can't stand on shoulders. I'm not, my playing, I'm only like an hour a day compared to people that take it professionally. And so I say, I'm standing on the toes. I'm standing on the toes of great people, and so I'm able to play very simplistically, but hopefully with the same passion and reverence for the music and the spirit of music, and how important it is for our society, especially with this kind of techno digification of our mindsets. And so having music that was created by people, musicians, artists, titans, whatever you want to call them, that really reflected nature and kind of the beautiful things before everything got kind of industrialized, digitized and commercialized. They, for me, are the extraordinary human artists that we should at least make a good effort to endure, especially as this techno-robotic automation kind of machine is encroaching on our world. Being able to throw Beethoven out there, throw Mozart, throw Johann Sebastian Bach, Franz Liszt at these machines and saying, hey, the machines, AI might be able to be very good at, making this music and that music, but hey, let's just remember who, the human creativity, the human expression, the human artistry, and the passion, but also the divine reverence that these great titans are. And that's one of my projects, probably my overall project, Musica, and then LullabAI is kind of the first event going after kids, is to make sure that those that have an ambivalence and penchant for the human spirit will appreciate art and the true, not true artists, but the great creatives that never use technology to put this track over here, put that track here, and then automate it. If you look at a piece by, let's say, even a symphony, but a piano concerto, which are my favorite, by Bach, which is a piano and an orchestra, and what the artist, let's take Beethoven, he knew he was going to perform this in front of the powers that be, the princes, the elites, the people that had money that could fund his project. And so the piano concertos are typically a 3-movement piece, with the first one kind of being this bombastic introduction, and the second part is typically an adagio, which is just this beautiful, serene, kind of pensive, deeply emotional piece, and then the third one's usually a closeout with kind of the first the theme off the first part. But these were the pieces that Beethoven knew, or Bach and Mozart were going to play in front of those people, and so they have an energy, a complexity to them that is typically outside of kind of a minuet, a sonata, and so when I try to introduce people to classical music, what I try to say is start off with the piano concertos, because those are the ones that have the greatest spirit of the great composers tied into it. And I think Beethoven was the one who said that all you people that were born in your privilege of princehood or kingship, or Beethoven said, well, I'm an artist and I create myself. And so he had quite the ego and quite the fire, and rightfully so, because he had some calamities that he had to overcome, and being kind of an artist sensitive type, I imagine he was, at least from my readings, he was very dismissive to a lot of people that took life for granted, where he lost his hearing and stuff, and was made fun of because he didn't fit into society. And so he's the fire, in my opinion, of music. So, and then I might do a variation off of Vivaldi's Pachelbel's Canyon in D. Everyone knows that piece. Ooh, I think Trevor wants to go for a walk. Okay, bye.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it helpful. Visit our website for content, tips, and products. And as always, practice, but make sure it's fun.